Welcome, guys, to another Danmachi review. Now, I know this is, like, really far behind. We're going to catch up this week with Episode 4, but I wanted to cover Episodes 2 and 3, because I think these are really pivotal episodes that, I'm going to be real, 2 kind of still felt like Episode 1 for me. I hate to admit it, but I have not caught up in the light novels. I basically read beginnings of Episode 2, but I've never really caught up with it, so that's kind of my goal this week, is to catch up and try to get ahead into Episode 4, so we can really start doing the deep dives that I've been threatening to do. And we'll bring those out here, hopefully, coming up in the next couple of weeks. But let's talk about Episode 2 real quick, because Episode 2 was interesting. It's really setting up. We're still kind of in the early stages of what we're going to see for the series going forward. So Episode 2 sets up the Xenos fam. And Xenos fam, basically, you could tell, is, they talk about it, they're smuggling monsters, like, all over the place. They're basically, like, the evil version of the Ganesha family. Because if you remember from the original, from the first series, Ganesha fam, they basically do the monsterphilia thing. They, get monsters, you fight them in an arena, blah, blah, blah. These guys are literally just smuggling monsters all over the place. Like, they're just sending monsters wherever, which seems like a really stupid idea, but what do I know? I'm just me. So obviously that is gonna lead somewhere. They talk about, how the Dragon Girl would be really profitable. They still don't know that she can speak, it seems. I think they're after her for the financial benefit, because if you don't know, if you haven't read, in fact, you can see over here in the image, even the little gem in the center of her head is apparently extremely valuable. They talk about it in the light novels. They don't really talk about it in the anime, or at least they haven't yet. Maybe they'll talk about it here shortly when we really get more into it. But so you really start to understand that this familia is kind of haunting Winnie, and they're going to be after her hard. Okay. Now, after all that, just initial part of the episode, the Hestia fam is sent into the dungeon on a fact-finding mission by Hestia. Belle has this interesting thing. This is kind of where I feel like the episode is a little all over the place. Once again, not having caught up in the light novels, I feel like, there just feels like there's something missing here. But Belle goes over to try to recruit Ryu, because obviously they're going to need to go down to level 19. They're going to need to go pretty far. And they basically need Ryu to try to get to that point of the dungeon. Ryu is initially, hesitant. But hilariously, Aisha shows up. She's just hanging all over Belle. Like, she's just all over old boy. And they have this really funny interaction where, like, Aisha's pretty sure that Belle's going to get with Haruhime, and Ryu's pretty sure that Belle's going to get with Seer, and it's a real funny interaction. You guys, at this point, you've watched the episode, right? Like, if you haven't, go watch it. It's such a great interaction between those two. It's really funny. And in the end, both of them decide to get, basically, to join the party. Now, in the dungeon, a lot of interesting stuff happens. First of all, we notice that Belle is having some problems facing the monsters. Obviously, now that he knows that Winnie can talk, he's kind of having second thoughts. Like, are these monsters really the bad guys? You can really see that he's starting to, like, suffer over these thought processes. And, Winnie at this point she's still back at the mansion. She's not here. This is literally just Belle, Welf, Lily, Aisha, and Ryu. And they're just on a dungeon crawl. Lily is used to stall Ryu and Aisha in level, was it 18, I believe. The peaceful level. The one that has, like, the giant from the end of season, or was it the midpoint? It was the end of season 2. No, it was the end of season 1. Anyway, doesn't matter. There's the giant thing there. But, yeah, obviously it's been defeated again, so it's gone into remission. But they're at like a tavern there, and she's just stalling the hell out of Ryu and Aisha. Obviously, because this would be bad if they found out about, Vinny, and they went after her. That would be kind of pretty bad. So Belle and Welf go on to level 19 on their own. And what's really interesting here, so obviously the Ikalos fam is down there. They're hunting monsters. They already know about the Dragon Girl. They ran into her already, and they're kind of looking for her again. They even happen to notice Belle, and they talk about him a little bit. Belle and Welf, on the other hand, they actually run into a harpy. It's a really interesting interaction. She goes into this whole, like, can we coexist thing? And it's really leading into where episode 3 is going to get, but we'll get more to that here in a moment. This is where the episode kind of gets a little choppy again, because it's like, we get to the end of this, and then, boom, they're out of the dungeon. Like, there's no, like, transitional scenes. There's all this tension, you get the little interaction with the harpy, and then, boom, we're out of the dungeon. And Belle's randomly roaming around the city. And this is why I feel like there's a lot more somewhere that we're missing out of the light novels here. But I digress. So Belle's just kind of walking around the city, and he's approached by Ikalos, the god of the Familia that's obviously trapping all these. And he starts probing him about Winnie, about Vinny, whatever you want to call her. And he's like, have you heard about this dragon girl? Apparently she's really pretty, and just is going on and on and on about this. Like, they know at this point. They're pretty confident that Belle has taken her in, but they can't really do anything. I think he even mentions that she can talk. But I don't know how that Familia has even figured that out yet, unless, once again, there's something in the light novels that we're missing from this. I don't believe, and I'd have to go back and reread it, but I don't believe in the episode 1 scene where that fam is fighting her, I don't believe she actually says anything to them. So there's something in there missing out of translation. But it's really interesting because then Hermes comes along and kind of like mediates and then gets Belle out of the way. And this is where it gets really interesting, because obviously Hermes is now grilling Ikalos. Like, he knows. Hermes is a real interesting character here, though we have been kind of foreshadowed that Hermes might become more of an antagonist role in this season. We'll see. But Hermes is obviously grilling Ikalos. He's asking him a lot of questions about, all the stuff they're doing, about the Dragon Girl, and all this kind of crazy stuff. And what's really interesting is he mentions Evilus. Now, if you haven't been playing the mobile game, Evilus is the, how do I word it? Basically, they're the antagonists that, like, ruined Aurario. Like, they effed everything up. If you're not playing the mobile game, most of my people watching this have played the mobile game, but we had a whole arc on this for the 3rd anniversary of the mobile game that was outstanding. Introduced all new lore, all new characters, and they went into this huge thing. And obviously, that's when you meet the black dragon that, basically kills everybody. Really awesome interaction, but I digress. It's really interesting to me that Evilus was mentioned. I don't know, once again, if they go into more in the books. I know it is mentioned prior in the books when they talk about reuse pest and all this stuff, but just fun little tidbit there that we got that. And then obviously, if you haven't been playing the mobile game, you don't know everything there. Like, they talk a little bit about it in the light novel, but it's just a fun little kind of bonus quest for those of us that play the game. So we get back to the mansion, and Vinny's out there playing a hide and seek with Haruhime, and Lily is kind of just going off. Like, she's losing it. She's like, it's really dangerous. This could, negatively affect the fam, and she's just going off on Hestia. And Vinny overhears this and, like, runs away. Like, she bolts. She's like, I'm out. Gone. And once again, it's another situation where I feel like there's a lot more interaction, that a lot more tension and stress, really, for lack of a better way to put it, that they could have built here. And I believe that goes on in the light novels, that didn't really happen here. But then we get to one of the most defining moments of this character. She comes across a little girl standing next to a wagon, and a rope breaks, and the wagon starts to fall on this little girl. Now, She shows this really crazy, like, superhuman ability here. Like, she's super fast, she's got, super hearing and all this stuff. A lot of things that, you can kind of see and take away from this. But if you're not really paying close attention, you're not really seeing everything. You're not really understanding everything. There's a lot to take in here regarding this. So, she just basically uses all these crazy powers, and all of a sudden it's like, okay, cool. Vinny basically goes, picks the girl up, and spontaneously grows this giant dragon wing. Like, this single dragon wing. And, like, basically protects them both from the falling timbers and all that stuff from the car. This is a big, like, heroic moment for her, and a big character change and all this stuff, where she's going from being this very passive character to now being more of, like, in a heroic role, so to speak. So, really interesting, really interesting situation here. Now, obviously, this is all happening in front of, like, the villagers. And the villagers only see a monster. They're not paying attention at all to the heroic side of this or any of that stuff. All they see is the monster. And they just start throwing stones at her. And they're like, get the hell out. And this is where Lily runs in, disguised as the elf from the previous episode, and basically runs out. Now, Bella's trying to run in there, but he's stopped. And it's kind of like, hey, look, if you get involved and you don't kill this monster, you're basically, like, putting a lot, and I mean a lot, on this familia. So, Belle's kind of stopped. He's kind of, given this ultimatum, told, you can't do this. You cannot interact in this way. So then Belle's kind of got to, like, take a back seat now. So, basically this is more or less the end of the episode. They all reconvene at the old church from the original series before, obviously, War Game. And they start talking about what their next move is. And that's kind of where we get to episode 3. Now, episode 3 is a huge turning point here. Okay? We start off the episode with the guild in an utter state of panic. Like, a complete state of panic. And, everybody's working overtime. Everybody's called into weird shifts. And, obviously, they're talking about the monster that's escaped the dungeon. Aina is asked to deliver a letter to the Hestia fam. And that letter, basically, it's, this is a charge. Like, they cannot refuse this charge, more or less, that the guild has put on them. They're told to go to the 20th floor with Vinny, and kind of that's about it. They're not given a whole lot more information. We find out later what all this is about. Now, obviously, they're all sent off on their mission. And Hestia is actually confronted by Fells and taken to go see Uranus. And when we start to really kind of digest this, we really begin to see, like, as Hestia starts to realize the gravity of the situation, Uranus is really explaining this to her as everything unfolds in front of her eyes with the team down on the 20th floor. So in the dungeon, they're just fighting along. Obviously, Vinny's still targeted. She's not really seen as a monster to the other monsters. She's still kind of just seen as, more or less the equivalent to an adventurer. But they have this really heated battle. They brought, like, a limited number of magic items. One of them even has to be used just to clear a room. And they take, like, a random moment. Because they're on the 20th floor, mind you. This is, I believe, that their group is gone yet. Because I don't... Belle went to floor 19. 19 with the Loki Familia. In the anime, it wasn't the Loki Familia. But he's down there with the Loki Familia. And the rest of the fam was at level 18, like, just chilling. So, this is pretty much the deepest they've ever gone. They're having a rough time. Well... when they get a random break, all of a sudden Vinny hears this singing. This weird singing noise. And she comes to, like, what looks like a gem, like a giant crystal in the wall. And Welp smashes that, and it opens up to this weird, dark, like, secret path. Now, this episode is really interesting. This is where I think we start to get into the actual meat and potatoes. Like, episode 1, episode 2, those were all lead-ins. They did a lot of jumping around, a lot of stuff. This is pretty straightforward. Like, we're getting now the story of what's going on here. There doesn't seem to be, now once again, I'm not caught up with the light novels at this point, but there doesn't seem to be a lot of, like, room for kind of BSing like there was in the first 2 episodes. So everything here seems pretty close-ish to where the light novels would be. Of course, maybe they describe it a little bit differently with, Hestea's interaction versus what's physically going on and all that stuff. But it's pretty close. You can kind of tell just by the way the narrative flows. Now, when they're in this secret path, Belle's really nervous. And what's really interesting is they even have Mikoto do, like, basically a monster check. And she's like, I don't sense any monsters. And that's when they're attacked by this lizard man. And it's really interesting. Notice Mikoto specifically said she did not sense any monsters, and instantly they're attacked by this lizard man. And it's the one from episode 1 that they had foreshadowed that said that he was stealing items from adventurers. Now, a heated battle breaks out, right? This battle is intense, but it's a little bit different. Like, right from the get-go, you could tell, like, these aren't monsters trying to kill adventurers. It's really more of a test. Like, you could really tell just by the feel and the pace of this fight. So the battle breaks out, and we start to realize that there's more monsters chilling. There's more of them hanging around. They're more like in the backdrop, basically egging on the lizard man. And then they start to get into the fight, and they all kind of attack Winnie. And Lily's sent to her aid, and Haruhime and is all sent to their aid. And Belle is fighting the lizard man, and the lizard man basically knocks Belle down, and then turns and charges Winnie. And I mean, like, comes at her. And it's really interesting because you get this moment where Mikoto and Wealth basically cross blades and just stop him in his tracks. It's really, really, really awesome scene. And then Belle does this, like, I think I haven't read the light novels, but I think they said it was like an Argonaut punch thing. But you hear, like, this gong going off. Lol, Belle. And instead of using, like, the knives or anything like that, Belle just comes out of the gate and just clocks the lizard man. I mean, just bam! Like, Ippos him through a wall. It is absolutely wonderful. It's the moment, like, it's that rare moment with Belle where you're like, yes! Get him! But what's really interesting about this whole thing is while you're sitting there like, yeah, go my man, you start to hear this, like, laughter, and you realize it's the lizard man, and, like, what is, like, the grunts and groans and stuff like that of the monsters slowly devolves into more like a human laugh. And he just kind of sits up, totally unfazed, and he's just slapping his knee and having a grand time and just chatting. And you're like, what the... Okay, this is a thing. Introduces itself as lead. Introduces the harpy from the previous episode, Ray. And they talk about basically this area of the dungeon which all these more or less, I would say sentient, but they're all kind of sentient, cognizant monsters have kind of come to basically take refuge. And we slowly learn that not only the monsters taking refuge here, the guild and the Uranos family and all of them, they're actually helping these monsters. I say monsters. They're actually helping them to survive and to hide and to, take... Because remember, like, with Winnie, when she was born, she was attacked by just not even adventurers, but monsters at the same time. Because they don't see them as monsters. And like Mikoto was kind of alluding to when she did the monster check, and she didn't sense any monsters, they're not really monsters. They're actually, we find out later, called Xenos. And they're more rational. Not all of them have the ability to speak, as we find out, but they're all very rational, and they're very different. And that's just what's really cool about this. But it really starts to go back to like the last episode where Ray was confronting Belle and Welf about, this coexistence thing. We're really starting to build this really complex story where it's like, where is this going next? Where is this going to take us? And that's more or less like the majority of the episode. That kind of brings us kind of to the climax of the episode where Belle obviously shakes hands with Lee. And it's a tense scene because obviously, unlike Vinny, where they filed down her claws and she's been tamed and all this stuff, Lee still got his sharp fangs, he still got his claws, and Bella's like gotta shake hands with him. There's like literally minutes where he's like debating what to do, but obviously they eventually shake hands and bond is formed. And this is gonna lead us obviously into the remainder of this, I say, chapter of the story, where it's gonna be the Xenos saga, where they're gonna be dealing with obviously the Eclos fam and all these other familias, and then obviously we've seen in the beginning art where Eyes goes to fight Belle because obviously she's going to see him as monsters. And if I recollect, I believe Eyes even has a really, really, really tragic backstory, so she hates monsters. And so there's going to be a lot of tension going forward. I am so hyped for episode 4. If you're also hyped for episode 4, let me know in the comments section down below. But just put hashtag EP4 hype. Let's get that hashtag going. For now, that is going to be the video, guys. Let me know what you guys thought of these last 2 episodes, because 2 was kind of okay. It really felt like it was all over the place. 3 was really fire. 3 was a great episode. And this week I'm going to work on catching up with the light novels so we can do some of these deep dives and do some of the comparisons. And then obviously episode 4 comes out on Friday. And in the morning we should have our stuff from the down. I don't know if there's a live stream now for Memoria Free, so I'm not really sure. We'll have some information for you guys on the mobile game in the morning. So if you haven't been playing that, make sure you subscribe, hit the notification bell. We'll have some information for you in the AM regarding that, because there's always more in the mobile game, and it's really fun. It's super free to play. It is absolute, and it always like expands on the lore of the stories. Like we get a lot of cool stuff. Like right now, we're getting a big story from the Sword Oratoria side of the tale. It's actually directly from the light novel, something that's never been animated apparently. So we get stuff like that all the time. So if you're not playing this game, definitely consider playing. Hit the notification bell. Stay up to date with everything. I gotta go read some light novels. I gotta catch up on this nonsense. Appreciate all y'all for watching this video, and I hope to catch you guys on the next one.